Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second half of the 5.2 banners today, looking at the first character, which is Neuvillette, getting another rerun, as well as another character, Zhongli, one of the Archons, also getting a rerun as well. So let's go through both of these banners and see whether these characters, or even their weapons, or maybe constellations, might be a good option for pulling for you.
And if you do enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and check out the rest of the channel for other videos you may find interest in. We do also have a Discord and you can find the link down in the description. Now, let's get on to the video.
So the first character we want to talk about is looking at Neuvillette. The great thing about Neuvillette is that obviously being one of the best DPS characters in the game, and obviously we've talked about him a lot, he's one of a well-known character, so we're just going to go very quickly over his kit. There are very specific things to go over with him as a character, but overall, using his skill and his burst are going to help you actually use his major way of doing damage, which is his charge attack. His charge attack will basically allow him to do basically in a very condensed version of how to say this, is a Kamehameha of water at an enemy and absolutely obliterate it into next week. So that's kind of his whole idea. He does have a charging area or time basically. He has a seal that he charges up by holding his charge attack, but by using your skill and using your burst to hit opponents, you'll be able to create these little balls on the ground that are going to be source water droplets. Picking up 3 of those will be able to almost instantaneously immediately charge this beam to allow you to start doing damage. So that's the major way of how to use him as a character. And while you are charging this up and picking up these source water droplets, they will allow you to heal yourself. But when you actually are doing the huge beam of damage, you are going to lose HP as well. But it is good to know that his burst as well as his skill can put out some pretty good damage. But once again, mainly focusing in a lot of the damage that he does in that charge attack state.
Now quickly looking over how Zhongli basically works. With normal attacks, nothing really is special there, but he's known as one of the best shielders in the game, if not the best, and that is through his skill. So basically you want to hold his skill to get his shield. You can tap the skill and it just kind of creates a pillar, but you're not going to get the shield. So you want to hold the skill to actually get the shield, and it does scale on his HP. And this is really good because it's very easy to get a lot of HP on Zhongli, and kind of why, and we'll talk about this later, but certain weapons other than his personal might actually in fact be better for him, but we'll talk about that later. So using his shield through his hold skill, scaling on HP and a lot of it, and he does have a little bit of damage. This skill also additionally creating this stone steely, in addition to having the shield, does a little bit of geo damage over time. It is a construct, so that does open up some other teams, like maybe throwing Chiori in the mix, but he's a very good, versatile, and flexible character because it's a geo shield, one of the most powerful shielders in the game, and it can just really go into any team. Now with his burst, it is more of a damage type focus, but it does have a cool little quality of life, or more of a utility to it, and that's petrification. If you have his burst at level 10, let's just say, then you're going to be freezing essentially the opponents for 4 seconds. Now it's not actually freezing like the reaction, but it's just called petrification, and they won't be able to move. And so this is pretty good. Can be nice to maybe work through some iframes for not taking damage. It does work on some heavier enemies like elite enemies, and even some types of bosses I've even used him for, and he actually ends up freezing them as well with the petrification. But it doesn't work for everything, so that is something to keep in mind, but has some nice damage potential to it. And because his shield scales on HP, he actually has a passive where getting more HP on Zhongli actually helps all forms of his damage. It helps his skill damage, it helps his burst damage. So the way you want to build him basically is going full HP, and if you want some damage, and if that's the route you're going for a hybrid build, then maybe getting some crit rate and crit damage as well.
Thank you to Tokyo Tree and Sakura Co for sponsoring this video. Tokyo Tree and Sakura Co have a mission to invite everyone to experience Japan from the comfort of their own homes, and what better way to do it than through these delectable and exquisite snack boxes. Use code INTERACT to receive $5 off your first Sakura Co or Tokyo Tree box through the link in the description.
Now that we've looked at a little bit of Tokyo Tree and Sakura Co and what they kind of mean and what they are, we actually did get our own boxes over here, and I have the Sakura Co box and Vixen is going to have the Tokyo Treat box. So kind of looking into this, if I open this up, you can see I have this really cool booklet right at the beginning, and as we went over, Holidays in Hokkaido is this month for Sakura Co. And this booklet's really cool because you can like go through it, and it talks about the culture of Japan and what some of these snacks mean, how they were crafted, just a lot of different cool stuff. Ryokan Retreat, and I've kind of already went through this, but it looks really cool, and like how they make their tea, which they have really good tea, and they did go over that. So Vixen, what is a little bit about your box in a little bit while I take a glorious sip of this awesome tea?
I'm gonna move you guys actually so you guys can actually see a little bit more of what's going on my end. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know if you can see, well, you guys can see this. Tokyo Treat's a little bit more on the treat side of things, so a little bit more of a snacky vibe, whereas Sakura is way more enveloped in the idea of traditional, authentic, local Japanese snacks.
Yeah, so this tea I've been drinking, they actually, the box came with 2 of these, so I fixed one, and this is the tea that it is. It's like a Shizuoka green tea, so it's really good. And I'm a tea person, so this was kind of right up my alley. But looking at some of these snacks, we went over these a little bit earlier, but this is the Hokkaido milk Danish. So the bread is very fresh tasting, like it's like very soft. And for something that came across the seas, I don't know, that's impressive to me. And yeah, it was packaged, but like it feels very fresh.
That's insanely good. Holy crap. Oh, it's got some spice to it a little bit.
Mount Fuji or something.
This is insane. You need to get one of these boxes immediately. I love everything I've had so far. Crunchy stuff. I love that this is way more snacky. This is way more on the vibe of like chill. You're watching anime, you're chilling out, you're vibing out, playing Genshin, playing any of your gachas, pulling for characters. And what better way, I guess, to just pull for characters than to, I don't know,
right?
give them a choco pie so that you can win your 50-50.
The Ichigo milk chocolate sand cookie. Looks very interesting. The texture of this is softer than it looks. It looks like it's like pretty hard, but these crackers are very soft. And then the strawberry stuff inside, very sweet. Definitely like that.
I love that there's a lot of sweet and spicy and crunchy, like savory snacks. Good taste for a lot of different people with a lot of different taste. Also keep in mind, you may not want to, but this can be shared with you and a friend. Also, you guys can see how much stuff they packed in one area.
Yeah, I have to agree. Very packed tight. There's not a lot of room left. Like they play Tetris with this for real. So a lot of this stuff's good. You've got some savory stuff in here too.
It's amazing.
Like these, I don't know what these are, but these are amazing, but they're very savory. They kind of, for me, they look like something that would be, I don't know, sweet, because all that my sweets brain, like Vixen already talked about, I love sweets. So when I saw this, all I thought was, yes, blueberry muffin. but no, it's actually really savory and very good.
On my end, it looks like a chocolate chip cookie or something. A lot of high quality snacks that honestly have absolutely blown anything I've ever had out of the water. All of these snacks are absolutely amazing, and it's amazing to know both of these boxes are supporting local businesses as well.
But I do like the cultural touch to the Sakura box. I really do like that. It has so much information on like how it's crafted and stuff. I really like it, the cultural touch, if you just like that kind of thing. I don't know. I don't really know which one I like better. I know I have the Sakura box, but the Tokyo Treat one looks really good too, so I don't know, they just both look so good. Yeah, this, I think they call it the Shunzuiki or something. Shunzui flower dish. Really cool. It's very ornate and well designed and crafted. You can tell like the artisanship that goes into this stuff is legit and high quality, so that's pretty cool. Thank you once again to Tokyo Treat and Sakura for sponsoring this video. With the holiday season fast approaching, why not go ahead and get a box either for yourself or perhaps a loved one to spread the holiday cheer. Use code INTERACT to get $5 off your first purchase of Tokyo Treat and Sakura boxes through our link down below in the description. Now, let's get back to the content.
Now looking over the actual characters, let's go ahead and look at the weapons. The first weapon we have is Neuvillette's weapon, which is Tome of the Eternal Flow. Now, one of the better 5-star catalysts in my personal opinion, and it's for kind of multiple reasons. Has a very high amount of crit damage, so it's a very good stat stick for other characters. But looking a little bit further, looking into the actual refinement, the HP is going to be increased by 16% for the wearer, and when current HP increases or decreases, charge attack damage will be increased by 14% for 4 seconds with a max of 3 stacks. This effect can be triggered once every 0.3 seconds, and when the character has 3 stacks or a third stack's duration is then refreshed, 8 energy will be restored to the wearer. This energy restoration effect can be triggered only 1 time every 12 seconds. So very solid, basically refinement that we have, mainly focusing in charge attack and HP percent, considering most of the damage you're doing with Neuvillette is going to be based off his HP percent as well as crit. But that's why we have such a high crit damage here, is because of the lower base attack, because he doesn't care about attack at all. So having a high crit damage here is extremely helpful for him as a character. Using this on some other characters can be beneficial, like I was talking about. Someone like a character that could be useful for is Mualani. Now, she doesn't care about charge attacks, she only cares about normal attacks, but technically the high amount of crit damage here and the HP percent can be technically given away and somewhat helpful for her to just have as a stat stick weapon, and plenty of other characters, without even worrying about the refinement ability, only just like Aqua Simulacra, can be just using this weapon as a stat stick for just an insane amount of crit damage to maybe balance out a nice, pretty good crit ratio for them.
And then looking at Vortex Vanquisher, or Zhongli's personal weapon, at level 90, this has a base attack of 608 and goes into attack percent at 49.6%, once again at level 90. Now, the refinement ability on this weapon, assuming just refinement 1, it will increase shield strength by 20%, and then scoring hits on opponents increases attack by 4% for 8 seconds. And then this has a max of 5 stacks. And this can only occur once every 0.3 seconds. While protected by a shield, this attack increase effect is increased by 100%, or in other words, it's doubled. So overall, just getting more shield strength, building up some attack, and it is an attack weapon. So it's going to give the character you're using this on a lot of attack. The issue that this has when looking specifically at Zhongli is the fact that his main role is to be a shielder, and that shield doesn't have anything to do with attack. So really, for Zhongli, this is only coming down to personal damage, and even then, we don't really care too much, once again, about his normal attacks. Unless you're doing like a physical Zhongli, that is a build that people do. I don't know if it's super viable. I haven't really done it myself, just because that's not the route I wanted to go, and I have seen gameplay of it. It's not absolutely atrocious, but it's just not something I would want to do. So I didn't actually pull for his weapon. I pulled instead for Staff of Homa, because technically speaking, if you're doing a hybrid build with Zhongli where you want to get the HP to make a pretty good shield, but you also want to see damage in his burst, then Staff of Homa is his best in slot weapon. So if you are a new player or you're looking at Zhongli and didn't know that, just keep that in mind. If you want to have a really good Zhongli, or one of the better Zhonglis in my personal opinion for hybrid damage, the hybrid Zhongli is, I think, the best one, because you have a little bit of damage but also a ridiculously good shield. Because I went the hybrid damage route with Staff, and I have like a crit of 68 over 150 or 160, something like that, which isn't crazy, but I still have 49,000 max HP, and that's not even being in a Hydro Resonance team. So when I'm over 50k. So his shield is still totally powerful, even though I've gone like, you know, just HP on the Sands, HP on the Goblet, and then I actually went crit rate on my Circlet, so I can have a crit ratio, and he's still very powerful. That's just personally my favorite. So when it comes to weapons, I don't think Vortex is the way to go, only unless you're doing a physical Zhongli and you know that's what you want to do. Now, for other characters for this weapon, once again, it's just a bunch of attack and then also some shield strength. For some other characters, the shield strength probably goes out the window, but it could be an option for maybe a Shenhe. If you don't have Shenhe's weapon, you're just getting a bunch of attack. But once again, Calamity Queller is going to be better for her, and it's just honestly not worth. You could even use just Primordial Jadewing Spear. You know, there's just other options. So Vortex, to me, just doesn't seem like a smart pull in most scenarios. Now, if it's just something you want the aesthetically pleasing aspect of it to match Zhongli, I totally get that.
Now we're going to look a little bit further beyond the actual banners and talk about some questions that are probably going to need to be answered if you're actually looking at playing one of these characters. The first question is, do you actually need either character on your account? Now, the thing to keep in mind when we're talking about needing a character on the account, we do have one of the best DPS characters that we are looking at here, if not right now the best, and that is Neuvillette. Neuvillette is extremely strong, easy to build, because he goes so heavily into HP, and that's really all he cares too much about. It tends to be extremely easy to build him. Just full HP and bunch of crit, and once again with his Maréchaussée 4-piece set, very easy to get the bonuses off of that, giving him a high amount of crit rate, himself going into crit damage with his weapon as well. There's a very easy way to get a high crit ratio as well as being a very sustainable HP as well. Never mind when you pair him with a character like Furina, it's extremely easy to make that team actually go insane. The amount of damage that you can output because of that is extremely good. You're giving basically Furina stack on stack on stack above and beyond pretty much every other character. So putting those two together, it makes sense lore-wise, and it makes sense in a team as well, exactly how strong they are together. So putting Neuvillette even with other characters can be extremely good, and we'll talk about Constellations later in a minute, but even with him at C0, without the C1 helping, kind of giving him some interruption resistance, throwing some ideas with him as a character. If you want to think about some other stuff, we'll talk about teams in a minute. But keeping those things in mind as you're looking forward to him, the major idea though is looking at him as the best DPS in the game. Do you actually need that? If you have someone like Mualani, or you have an extremely strong Hydro damage dealer that you actually like and would want to use more, then that might be something to keep in mind. But once again, if you're looking for the best in the game, that's where you should look. Looking at the other character, we're talking about Zhongli. Now, Rift already went over this. There's two major ways to really build him. Either super shield bot by throwing on like White Tassel, I believe, with the HP percent, or you're going a completely different route and going more of a hybrid build. Usually never into a physical damage bonus, which once again, our physical damage team, which Rift just talked about, isn't really something you really should do anyways, but mainly people are using him for shield bot, and if they're going the hybrid way and building him extremely well, throwing Staff of Homa on him is the way to go. Now, personally, in my opinion, I think the hybrid way is the best way to do things. Getting some ER, getting a pretty good crit ratio, getting a good amount of HP, I think it makes the best Zhongli. But if you're just looking for an extremely strong shielder that put on multiple teammates, actually, especially talking about Neuvillette, without that C1 for Neuvillette, throwing in Zhongli is going to be his best teammate, and one of his best teammates at least for that. So I think extremely well with everything that he does. I believe Zhongli also gives some resistance shred. So Zhongli can be a very, very good character outside of just being a shielder, but for damage as well as supportive capabilities. But I think overall, looking at these characters, a little bit beyond that question though, let's look at the actual team. So Rift, what teams are people trying to look at here?
Yeah, I think, well, with Neuvillette, it's kind of straightforward and a little bit simpler. He doesn't have like a massive variety of teams he can do. I mean, there are definitely things out there, but one of his best teammates by far is definitely Furina. Now, Furina, everyone knows, or most people know that, being one of the best supports in the game, you should have her anyways. And I'm saying should out of kind of a perspective of like, endgame content. If you care about that stuff, you should have Furina. Furina's amazing. You don't, forget Neuvillette, have Furina. But Neuvillette really likes Furina, one of the best teammates, just because of all the synergies that Vixen already talked about throughout the video. So you have them together, you have the Hydro Resonance, everything, all of this synergy is just there. Now, Zhongli, who happens to be on the other side of the banner, is also one of the best supports. There are definitely options. I mean, if you're not using Zhongli and using just a different shielder, that's fine too. You can also use Dia, just because she does have interruption resistance and happens to be pyro. So if you want to kind of see some vaporize at least every now and then, she can technically be enabling that. There is also kind of just using the core of keeping Furina in there, but just using Bennett Xiangling, have both resonances, which really the attack resonance only helps Xiangling, but Xiangling's continual just pyronado, enabling either Neuvillette or Neuvillette enabling her. Vaporize is going everywhere, and both Neuvillette and Xiangling have really high damage, especially if they are vaporizing. So that's a pretty comfortable team. It's just you don't have a shielder, especially if you have C0 Neuvillette, and we'll get into Constellations soon. But there's a few ways you can do teams with Neuvillette. The basic idea is, assuming you keep Furina in there because she's just so powerful with Neuvillette, like she's not really replaceable in the team. You have 2 open slots. Typically, you want some kind of sustain, and that sustain is preferably a shielder over a healer, especially if you're C0. If you have C1, a healer's just fine. Like, you can work with that totally well. And even sometimes, if you're not getting hit with these other characters taking damage and stuff, sometimes you can run more offensive and not even have a sustain, because Neuvillette has all that HP increase. He heals himself, which is why another reason like people talk about how much of a good solo character he is, which is kind of a separate thing. But because he heals himself, it feels really comfortable, and he is an HP scaler, so he already has a naturally high HP. The thing is, still, I would still have some kind of healer or some character like that, just to kind of help with Furina's draining, and then having the healer restore that means you're going to get fanfare points for Furina even faster, which if you have no constellations on Furina is going to be really good, just because it does take a lot to get to maximum fanfare with a C0. Now C1, C2, maybe a different story, but still I would have some kind of healer, especially if you're not running the shielder. And then maybe like a Viridescent support for that last slot, Kazuha, more free-to-play options, Sucrose, Lynette. Even this future character that we recently talked about in our last video, Lanyan, could potentially fill that role as well, being on Viridescent. Several different ways to go about it. If you're not using that, though, you could use the newer version of the, quote, Viridescent, which would be the scroll set on Kachina or Xilonen. Xilonen's actually one of the best characters you can use for a Neuvillette team. I think the best Neuvillette team you can do is Neuvillette, Furina, Xilonen, and Kazuha, perhaps. to be really offensive, just get maximum damage increases. But assuming you want that sustain in there, Zhongli is one of the best options for that. And if you don't have him, Dia's pretty good. Don't have her, any other shielder, even 4-star shielders like Layla. So I know that's a lot to be said, but basically, you know, just as long as you're filling those roles, you're going to have a cracked Neuvillette team, just because Neuvillette in and of itself is absolutely insane. And then when it comes to Zhongli, I'll be quick with this one, just because he's really versatile. It's not like he has a best team for him. It's usually looking at the main DPS. What is their best team? And does it happen to include Zhongli? Zhongli's just a very flexible character because he's a sustain, and his idea is to sustain and shield the team. So he's really good on many teams. Neuvillette, really great support. Hu Tao teams, amazing. Any team that really wants a shielder or interruption resistance, Yoimiya really likes Zhongli. I mean, there's just so many characters, I could go on and on. Really flexible character because he's just shielding, gives the resistance decrease of like 20% when you have that Jade shield on the character. So universal damage increase, because that's all elemental damage and physical damage even. So just a very flexible character. And if you are looking for a sustain in general or a shielder because you need another healer or you need another shielder for your second team in the Abyss, I think Zhongli is a very great option, if not one of the best, to go for.
Now looking a little bit further at the last question we have, which is, do you need the weapons? This is going to be a very quick option, really looking at this. For the characters, obviously, because if you have extras of these weapons, Vortex Vanquisher, you can try to slot onto someone who's going to go into attack percent. That's really the only way to really go for it. And if you accidentally get Tome of the Eternal Flow and don't have Neuvillette, then just throwing it as a stat stick like I talked about earlier is the way to go. But when we're talking about the characters on the banners, to really talk about do you need the weapon with the character, Zhongli, as we've already stated, is a no. It's actually a negative thing to actually get this weapon, which is why this banner can be a little bit scary. But that also means that something like Tome of the Eternal Flow, when you get it, is just that much more, I guess, strong. It's actually just an extremely good catalyst. Once again, stat stick for a lot of other characters, but mainly for Neuvillette. I mean, the HP increase is doing more damage, the high amount of crit damage. Neuvillette's already ascending into crit damage, plus the 36% crit rate he gets from the Marechaussee, which he's getting by himself easily, never mind from other characters like Farina that are dropping his HP, and probably characters like Shilonen, like you mentioned, that are increasing his HP. But you're also getting a charge attack increase, which he's doing constant hits in that beam of damage I was talking about earlier. So that's also giving you more of these stacks that you can get. Getting other characters as well, he has an ability in him that has his charge attack damage will be increased if you create different types of reactions, basically, or if you hit reactions with him with other elements. With Hydro, then you're doing more damage. So this weapon is extremely strong, also giving back energy. His burst is allowing him to get 6 of those source water droplets, and you can get a maximum of 3 every single time you do a charge attack. So this is allowing 2 instances of about 3 seconds of damage at C0 with the burst. Getting that energy back is very helpful, considering you're going so hard into HP and crit that having something to help a little bit more in the energy area is pretty helpful. Never mind having other characters like Kazuha, Shilonen, and Farina with the double Hydro creating more particles, and the other characters having a lot of energy recharge to create particles as well with what they're doing. So this weapon, I think, is a very high pull factor, especially for the character that's on the banner. Vortex Vanquisher, on the other hand, is just something that is easily skippable, and in my personal opinion, should really never be pulled.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. But looking at our next section, we're going to kind of look into constellations for these characters. How valuable are the constellations for the character? Are they worth just to sit at C0, or do they kind of really want their first or second constellations perhaps? And is that something you, the player, would actually need based on what your account looks like? So looking into this, and we're going to start with Neuvillette. C1, when Neuvillette takes the field, he will obtain 1 stack of past Draconic Glories from the passive talent Heir to the Ancient Sea's Authority. Basically, that passive talent just means that the more reactions, hydro-based reactions you're doing, you're going to build up to 3 stacks with that, and you deal more charge attack damage, essentially. This just allows you to only have to do 2 reactions, and you already have the max. So kind of nice, helpful. And then additionally, with this constellation, his interruption resistance will be increased while using the charged attack empowerment, legal evaluation, and the charge attack equitable judgment. So basically, while you're powering up and while you're doing it, you have massively increased interruption resistance. And this is why the C1 is so valuable. But let's look at the C2 real quick. The passive talent, Heir to the Ancient Sea's Authority, will be enhanced. Each stack of these past Draconic Glories will increase the crit damage of Charge Attack Equitable Judgment by 14%, and the maximum you get from that is 42%. You must unlock the passive talent to do this. So it's really just a 42% crit damage increase, which is kind of nice. Nothing crazy. And he already has a lot of crit damage, especially if you have the weapon, you're using Marshal Zay. So it is allowing you to push that even higher. Now, overall, looking at both of these constellations, the C1 is absolutely insane. And between the two, C1 is definitely more valuable. So if you are looking for higher investment in your Neuvillette, you have the pulls and you want to do it, the C1 is a game changer. It's so helpful to have that interruption resistance. And Vixen can attest to this. I have a C0 Neuvillette and Vixen has a C1. So we can, gauge the differences between me having C0, and I've definitely had problems not having the C1 when I'm charging up. If I'm not using a shielder or any other form of third-party interruption resistance for him, then I have to really think about my positioning and stay away from enemies that are just going chaotic, especially really aggressive enemies that are trying to chase you down. It's pretty difficult to play him if you don't have a shielder. Then that's why I have Zhongli. I use my Zhongli with my Neuvillette all the time because I don't have C1. It's not like a crutch just because... I mean, it does feel like a crutch, honestly, but Zhongli is just so good, and I'd probably be using Zhongli anyways because I just really like using the two grandpas together, if I'm being honest. But Vixen can tell you that the C1 is just absolutely... like, the value's insane. Like, we can't really put it into words. And so, actually, it's so powerful that when looking at the value between that and the weapon, it's very hard to decide. If you need more interruption resistance, I would even venture to say that the C1 is probably more worth it, but the weapon gives so much damage. I think Vixen, it's like a 60% increase when you pull his weapon for his overall damage. It's absolutely insane. Like, the weapon is just cracked. So with higher investment, C1 weapon, kind of, I guess, up to you to decide, and just think about the weapon banner, especially, I know we just talked about it, but with the other crap weapon on it, Vortex Vanquisher, that's a risk you're taking. But I would say it's still worth it. Like, weapon's so good. C1, so good. I just didn't get C1 because I have Zhongli. Now, if you already have Zhongli, or you're planning to get Zhongli here, then you can, yes, live without the C1 as long as you're using Zhongli or any other really good interruption resistance source like Dia or something like that. So, and then with Zhongli, looking at his constellations, Vixen, what do we see there?
Well, actually, I want to just reaffirm exactly what you're saying, and that is exactly the point with the C1. The thing is especially with that, the team you were just talking about is the team I use actually with my Neuvillette, and that is with a Xilonen. Now, she's got constellations, but I have the Xilonen, I have the Kazuha, the Farina, and the C1 Neuvillette. And the reason I can run so offensive strength, such that really focusing so hard into resistance shred as from 2 characters, and a huge buff from Farina, and elemental damage bonus from 2 strong characters, is because I cannot have the extra shielder in the team. The Layla, the Beidou, the Zhongli. That's a great thing about the C1, is that it is another character to pull. If you are pulling Zhongli for Neuvillette, in my personal opinion, I would not pull Zhongli. Actually, usually I always say more characters are better than constellations. But here, I would even venture to say Neuvillette is just a better idea to go for his C1 than pulling Zhongli most of the time. Now, I know that is an insane thing to even say, because usually more characters is better, and especially Zhongli with the strength of his shield, I just think other characters can fit and pull off the shielding capability just as fine. So I think that, Zhongli can kind of be worked around, whereas someone like the C1 and Neuvillette allows you to just put your Neuvillette even higher because of what you can do. The damage you're getting is helping a little bit in that C1, but that resistance shred, or the interruption resistance, actually allows you to put another buffer in the team, which then can skyrocket your damage even more.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I was thinking about with it specifically, is the fact that, well, I'll pull another character in Neuvillette to save an entirely new slot, just like you're saying, to have that much more damage increase. Because your Neuvillette, I've seen it, pops off. Mine, typically, I'm sitting around the 50k when I'm in full swing in the Abyss. Yours is definitely like 80 and 90. I've even seen you go over 100 just because Shilonen's insane, and so you can do all of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you can easily crack 100k. Now the Xilonen is C2, and the Kazuha is the C1, and the Farina is C0. But that C1 Neuvillette really does carry to allow you to have that extra buffer to make that viable. But looking at the constellations in Zhongli, in my personal opinion, C0 Zhongli, I don't even have Zhongli. Amazing character, but I don't even have him, and I know that 99% of the time, the C0 Zhongli is going to do just fine. You don't need the C1, you don't need the C2. Constellations are just not necessary for such an amazing character. He has such a complete kit. He has one of the best completed kits at C0 that I've seen in the game. Now, looking at Constellations though at C1, it states that it increases the maximum number of stone Seelies that can be created by his skill, and that may exist simultaneously to 2. So it allows you basically to put up 2 pillars at the same time. Now, I know what this technically allows you to do is more geo application, because you're putting 2 stones up at the same time, and they periodically do some geo hits. So from what I really see here, it doesn't like help any more of your shielding. It doesn't do much else than that. It's more application based in my personal opinion, also possibly just for maybe exploration wise for some odd reason. And I'm sure that other characters, maybe if they're based off of geo constructs, can also make this maybe work a bit better than not. But overall, I think the C1 is just kind of not really that great. Whereas the C2, it states that Planet Befall, the burst, grants nearby characters on the field a GH shield when it descends. So when you absolutely decimate everything in the world by literally just dropping a huge geo rock the size of Tevat onto the planet, you can immediately just give your other characters on the field a Jade Shield. And the reason why this is such a good one is usually because if you are a co-op person, or if you're helping your friends in other worlds, also if Genshin for some odd reason ever decides to go into PvP, this is going to be absolutely insane, and that's just a side tangent. But the idea still is that you can give your characters and other people that come to your world a Jade Shield, and that's just pretty goated overall. Between the 2 constellations though, I think the C2 is better. So if you're going to go for constellations on Zhongli, aim for the C2. But honestly, I wouldn't even waste the extra wishes on any of his constellations, once again, because he has one of the best completed kits in the game.
Yeah, I think in the context of you, the player, just kind of looking at your account and, you know, just everything's personal. We're looking at the Abyss. You don't need these. The C2 is only in co-op. So this is only if you're like a veteran player, you already have all these things. You complete the Abyss every single time. You're kind of just chilling, but you want to have like a cool utility for co-op and be able to like just help people, I guess, if you like to help new players get through stuff or just whatever, exploration. The C2 is just kind of more of a fun factor and just being able, kind of a quality of life to just help other people. But that's really not doing anything for you. So when you're pulling for that, just know this is to help someone else, not you. This doesn't change anything about Zhongli for single player play. Nothing will change. That extra Stone Steely is really, just like you said, application. I mean, you could argue, well, it's more damage and more off-field damage. Those Stone Steelies don't do that much damage at all. I'd say I have a pretty insane Zhongli. I really put a lot of investment to him. The burst is really the damage. The Stone Steelies don't do that much. C1, not worth. Just stay at C0. Like Vix said, really complete kit, really powerful. The C1's not going to change anything that much, even if you are doing a geo-based team. If you're using Shiori, Shiori's not going to see any difference either. She only needs the one construct to create another one of her Tomato dolls. She's not going to create yet another one. She has constellations that can do that, but then she'll already satisfy that for herself. So this really isn't changing anything. So overall, just stick at C0. If you want any constellations on any of these 2 characters, it would be Neuvillette, definitely getting that C1. Well, we hope that this video could help you decide on whether these characters or even the weapons coming up on this next banner are for you.
As always, if you guys have any suggestions, any ideas about the characters, go ahead and let us know down in the comments of any ideas that you want to put together with different teams, constellations, whatever you're kind of running for. If you guys are even pulling the characters, let us know. Hope you guys win your 50/50s, and hopefully they come early, and so you don't have to worry about that through the rest of the time. Hopefully you don't accidentally drop a Vortex Vanquisher either. We will be hoping for that as well. But make sure to like and subscribe to the video if you liked it as well. Check out our Discord. Thank you guys for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.